all have had an easy morning and are ready to dive into some scripture. Let's take a moment and reflect on ourselves. I invite you to close your eyes and answer the question I'm about to ask. How often do you hide your faith? How often do you hide your faith? This could mean keeping silent in discussions about God because you don't want to be judged as a weird person. Or perhaps you don't mention exactly what you do on Sunday mornings when one of your friends asks why you can't get coffee. Or have you ever found yourself saying, I believe in God, but quickly deflecting any sort of notion that you may be one of those religious Christians? Today we are going to discuss the book of Esther in the Old Testament. I love this story for many reasons. First, it is loaded with feminist power. The two women mentioned in the book use their feminine gifts as a way to reclaim themselves. And second, we have a story about a Jewish woman who pulls a Meghan Markle and goes from commoner to royalty. Actually, she becomes the queen. And then, when her people were about to be massacred, she does what was culturally taboo and implores the king to change his law and ultimately saves the Jewish people. Through all of this, we are going to connect with Esther and see how hiding from one's faith can be a risky task, and that lies, no matter how well thought out they are, will never last. Our story with Esther begins with Queen Vashti. One evening, Vashti was called to the king's party to display her beauty. When she refused the request of King Xerxes, he removed her crown and searched for a woman to replace her. A man named Mordecai, who was Jewish and came from Susa, had an adopted daughter named Hadassah. Hadassah was a beautiful Jewish woman, and when the eunuchs called for virgins to appear before the king, Mordecai told Hadassah to hide who she was and to hide her Judaism in order to become queen. This is how Hadassah becomes Esther. And the Bible tells us that her beauty was so radiant, the king took her as his wife. Now, there's another character in this story, Haman, who despises the Jewish people, specifically because of Mordecai. And this is because Mordecai refused to bow or to rise in the presence of Haman. This is why Haman tells the king that there is a people, aka the Jewish people, who must be eliminated to ensure the power of the king is never jeopardized. This lie of omission leads to a law being put out in the king's name, declaring the complete massacre of the Jews. Now, this is important to remember because his wife, unknown to him, is Jewish. Haman's hatred for Mordecai was so deep that he had a long pole created specifically to impale him. Fearing for his people, Mordecai tells Esther she must find a way to stop the king's law. So, Queen Esther invited Haman and King Xerxes to a banquet where she reveals her Jewish nationality and begs the king to stop what he has done. And because Xerxes was so hot and heavy for Esther, the Bible puts it nicer, but King Xerxes immediately ends the massacre of the Jews. He kills Haman on that pole, which was meant for Mordecai, and kills Haman's sons. Esther and Mordecai wrote all of this down to become what is now known as the Book of Esther. The holiday of Purim is celebrated every year as a reminder of how Queen Esther saved the Jewish people. And it's tradition that Jews dress up in costumes to remind themselves how Esther hid who she was. Esther lied. She lied about who she was, where she came from, and what her faith was. Sure, she saved her people, but she had to deny them at the same time. How easy is it to hide our faith when it's convenient to do so? How easy is it to step into the background so that the thing that defines who you are is dimmed? How easy is it to keep silent and not cause trouble because what you have to say is different from others? When we choose to not actively proclaim ourselves as children of God, we are also hiding who we are, and we are denying the one who has never denied us. I know this is easier said than done, trust me. Being confident in your faith is a journey, one that feels uphill both ways. And there are answers that we don't know to questions others will throw at us, and that's okay. The only one that knows all the answers is God. In fact, Many leaders on both the Jewish and Christian sides believed that God was there with Esther through all of this, and it was his strength that gave her the courage to tell her husband who she was. She told him that she was Jewish and that she was part of the people who the authorities were killing. She knew she was putting her life on the line to be honest about her faith. Moses, like Esther, saved his people. Moses was Jewish, and because of a law saying to kill male babies, even more so Jewish male babies, Moses' mom sent him away. Moses didn't know that who he belonged to was no pharaoh, no king, no worldly authority. It was God. And Moses had to be proud of who he was and choose to speak out so that the Jewish people would no longer be slaves. Esther had to speak out too and be proud of who she was so that her people wouldn't be killed. In the New Testament, there is a story about denial that gets told every year on Good Friday. When Peter denies Christ 3 times, it's in fear of being seen as one of those followers of him. It was that fear of being thought of as one of those radical believers that drove him to deny Jesus. He didn't see himself as how we see him and the other disciples, obedient and faithful. We are so quick to judge Peter and scorn him for turning his back on Jesus when times get tough. We use Peter as a symbol of what not to do. But it is also in Matthew chapter 16, verses 18, that Jesus tells him, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Peter's ability not to only be chosen by Christ, but to also be tested and put on a faith roller coaster should be seen as a message of hope, not a fault. As Americans, we are witnesses to corruption, to brutality, to lying leaders. And we are also witness at how natural it is to choose the easy way out. Imagine if we, as Christians, as children of God, choose to speak up. We choose to swallow our fear. And when our faith is questioned, our morals are questioned, when we are called crazy because we believe in a power so great and complex, we choose not to hide, but in fact acknowledge we don't have all the answers and say, I am a child of God. I believe in loving my neighbor no matter who my neighbor is. I believe in life after death, and I don't know how it all works. And that's okay. Pinecrest, let us embrace Peter, Moses, and Esther for every part of who they are. And like Peter, let us build a strong church. Like Moses, let us find ourselves as God created us. Let us, like Esther, find the strength to right our wrongs. Let us find the courage to be our true selves and no longer hide, because no matter how hard you try to remain hidden, you will always be found.